What is up there, guys and gals? Welcome back to Christian Penguin 1990. My name is Matthew, and once again, if you watch my Why Pray video, I'm going to say it again. I do apologize. I've been having some software issues, hardware issues, and several other things going on at one time. I just haven't had a chance to get back and record like I wanted to. Just been really busy and technical issues. But what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going back over DNA and protein, and this video is, of course, replacing the previous video where I was going to do part 1, part 2, part 3, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to cram it all into one video and replace that one. So I've got my notes out again, and we're going to go back through it. I do apologize since it's repetitive, but after this video, the next uploaded video will be natural selection. So DNA and protein. Most important discovery of the 20th century was DNA molecules. It brought quandary and confusion to evolutionary scientists at the beginning, or at that time. It said if they would care to admit it, DNA could bring total destruction to evolutionary theory. And the reason some are saying that, or they said it at that time, is because of how super complex DNA was. There's no way it happened by chance, and I still don't believe there's any way any of this happened by chance. To think that is ridiculous, because everything we see that is made has a creator, has a designer. And to sit there and think that all that has to have somebody make it, even something as simple as a pencil had to have somebody make it, but the entire universe, life and and everything else, biological processes, physical laws, or the laws of physics, as you will, and so on. Nope, that happened by chance. I just don't see it. There is no possible way. Okay, the DNA code and components of protein so utterly complicated that they defy any possibility of coming about by chance, which I was just talking about. Evolutionism says that the random... Can't even read my writing now. That the random actions are what accounts for biological life. Sorry, I couldn't read my writing. Due to the barrier of the multi-billion DNA code, show that not only was it impossible for life to form by accident, it could never evolve into different kinds of animals. Now, that's very, very specific. Because, or not specific, but give me a second, I'll explain. When I was taking that note from a creation side, like I said, I try to take notes from both sides, and then I, compound them with actual science, and then I go through why I do what I do. But the creationist one that had this said species. That's wrong. It's kind. So in other words, a dog will never become a cat. A dog will never become a whale, and so on. It's not going to happen. Genetics proves it will never cross that boundary, ever. It just can't happen. So that's why they're saying the DNA code and so on shows it's not even by accident could it happen. So, but when people time it, well, millions of years, then somehow people believe the fairy tale. No, there's no genetic possibility or possible way it could ever happen. Period. There's no way. DNA and its code. Gregory Mendel his discovery laid foundation for all modern work in genetics, DNA, and so on. He was one of the ones that made that first initial discovery. Body's blueprint. DNA is strung out within long coiling strips. It's like a ladder that's been twisted. DNA is the carrier of the inheritance code in living things. It goes cell, nucleus, chromosome, gene, DNA. So in other words, it holds everything that you are. That's a lot of information to hold, and we'll see why in a minute. Inside DNA is the total of all the genetic possibilities of a given species. So in other words, you have either an animal or a human, and by the way, they are not related. Humans are completely separate than animals. But, so you have, say, I don't know, let's take a dog. It's just easier. Take a dog. So you have a dog that lives in a very cold climate. Already in the genetic code is a long hair gene. In other words, the hair just grows until it's longer. Well, that's what happens. If it's in a hot climate, the hair is going to be shorter because you don't want the dog to overheat and die from, heating too much. So that's what I'm talking about. But it's already in the genetic code. It's not something that evolved to adapt and all that. It's already in the gene code, which we'll go into with natural selection later. But you have the gene pool, genome, genetic subcode is the genotype. Okay. The coiled strips, which is like I said, it looks like the long ladder that's twisted. That's the cold strips. DNA is scattered throughout your body in about 100,000 billion specks. That's a lot. In other words, you have so much DNA, it's ridiculous. Code within each DNA cell is extremely complicated. One human cell or DNA code put into English would take up many large volumes, and each volume would be equal to the size of a complete unabridged dictionary. So in other words, let's say you have an unabridged dictionary that's about, I don't know, this big. That's each volume, and it would take up a ton of volumes just to cover your DNA code. Just one person, not everybody, just one. And that's a lot of information from your genetic code. The double-stranded helix, which is what the coil strip is, it has this shape to fit inside the chromosome, so it fits inside the chromosome like this. Dividing DNA unhooks and rehooks, which is the helix. As it gets information, it unhooks, attaches, rehooks, and so on. This process of division can occur at the amazing rate of 1,000 base pairs a second. That's, sorry, my eyes are still dry. That's pretty quick. So, and again, remember, this is all happening within your body every single second. Not once in a while, what, every second. 1,000 pairs is split together, split together, split together. That's pretty quick. And there's just no way for that to function in your body without any mishap whatsoever happen by chance. There's just no way. It is perfectly designed to work. If not, it could take 10,000 years for a baby to form in the womb and then be born. So in other words, instead of only 9 months, ladies, you would be pregnant for 10,000 years. Imagine how big your stomach would be then. So be happy with the 9 months and how God designed it. But yeah, if all this wasn't functioning, that's just showing you how if it didn't operate at that pace, something as simple, well, not simple, but something like pregnancy could take forever to go through. I don't know if the baby would grow at a normal human rate at that point, but I don't think so. But that's just giving you an equivalency of the differences. So, like I said, ladies, be glad you're not having a pregnancy for 10,000 years. You'll be pregnant for a while. The base code for human body has nearly 100 trillion cells. Again, that's a lot. 46 chromosomes in each cell, 10 billion DNA ladders in each chromosome. For something so small, it's got a lot of stuff in it. DNA ladder is the DNA molecule or basic pairs. It is this sequence of chemicals, within these base pairs that provides the instructional code for your body. That instructional code oversees all your heredity and many of your metabolic processes. So in other words, what you inherit, like blue eyes, brown hair, whatever, that's in there, and the speed of your metabolism. That's what it's talking about. Watson and Crick discovered the DNA structure. They actually used data from a female researcher that they didn't acknowledge, and I tried to find it. I couldn't find her name anywhere. That's the best. If you found it, good. I just couldn't find it. But basically, they stole her stuff and said, yep, we did it, which is typical among scientists back then. Utter complexity. In order to form a protein, DNA molecules have to direct the placement of amino acids in a certain specific order in a molecule made up of hundreds of thousands of units. 64 basic code units. Missing code is cause for health issues. So in other words, while it's doing this, if you're missing a code for some birth defect or whatever, or something happened at a hospital, something happened while, say your mom didn't realize she was pregnant with you, and she went and had some kind of vaccination or something that was harmful to infants during the growing process, and so on, this would completely mess it up. And they've actually linked several things to sudden infant death syndrome, to certain vaccinations. What was the other one? I think autism was linked to a couple of them, not all of them, but to a couple, and so on. There's a video by Mary Tocco about that as well. Definitely go to her site to read all that and get her book. I've read the book. It's amazing what we didn't know was going into our bodies as we were growing up. Let's see. Something else that they do is evolutionists try to say that everything came from this biological soup, the traits and all their problems. my biggest issue is with evolutionism theory, or religion, however you want to look at it, because to me it is a religion the way you look at it. It's a belief system. It's not based on any actual fact. But by what they put in the textbooks, out of this soup you got your first single-celled organism, but everything in evolution takes forever to happen. So here's the problem. And this is why I really have an issue with it. Apart from the stuff with Miller, Urey, and all that mess, we'll get to that later. But let's say you have the organism. Well, there's no ozone layer yet. Like I said, according to their theory, there was no oxygen, no ozone at that time. They've tried to revamp the theory now to, we covered it up. But originally they said, no, there's no oxygen, there's no ozone, nothing. So you have your single-celled organism that's getting ready to spark the evolutionary process. However, it has not evolved anything to protect itself from the sun's harmful rays. It dies. Dead. As soon as it came out, dead. Well, this just keeps happening. Now, here's why I say this is a big issue. Because, first of all, according to evolutionary theory, it has to mutate and get these specific genes or DNA sequence going to where, okay, I develop a resistance to the sun's rays. Well, I have to be able to eat, have to be able to think, have to be able to pump blood, have to be able to do this. All this has to happen, but it takes very long time. So they came up with abiogenesis or spontaneous generation. Oh, but just poof, there it is with everything. Which, by the way, that's creation. That's not evolution. Because that's exactly what the Bible shows. That God created everything as it needed. Perfect DNA code everything that it needed to survive during the days of creation. That's spontaneous generation. Poof, there it is. It has everything. That's proof of creation. And what happened is some people, it's like, we're going to take this from the creationists and we're going to twist it to make it ours. And that's all that is. And it's actually creation. It's not evolution. But, so again, that's the problem. And also, to even sit there and think that an organism, you know what, I need wings. Okay, I got wings. No, the organism doesn't sit there, you know what, I want to fly. Let me evolve wings. It doesn't happen that way. And, well, they said, well, it's random mutations. I talked to somebody about this one day already. He said, well, it's just random mutations that cause that. I was like, okay, first of all, it's not random. It has to be very, very specific mutations because it alters the entire genetic code of the animal, which is why it is not random. It has to be very specific. However, every mutation ever documented was harmful, not beneficial whatsoever. And when I'm saying harmful, which I'll really go into depth in mutations later, but quick thing on the mutations is one, it cannot take anything from the existing genetic code of the animal. So in other words, it can't, like bacteria become resistant to antibiotics. The way it does that is this mutation takes away from the genetic code, which is part of the bacteria's genetic code that the antibiotic will latch onto to kill it. That's not beneficial. You took away genetic information. It has to give new genetic information as well that is not already existing in the animal or humans, whatever. Mutations don't do that either. They take from it. Remember? Just like the bacteria. Any mutation either takes from or it just overuses something that's already in the genetic code, such as animals with 2 heads, 2 legs, whatever. It's not new genetic information. It's already there. It's just overused. So again, that's, that doesn't make it beneficial. And of course, it can't harm the animal in any way, which all of them are harmful. So, like I said, we'll get more on mutations later. This is mainly just DNA. The messenger RNA. These are needed. Without them, DNA is useless in the body. So in other words, without the messenger RNA, DNA couldn't send all this information back and forth, which would keep you, moving and alive and all the processes going. The human living computer, DNA and its related agencies operate dramatically like an advanced computer. So in other words, they're saying that our body operates like a huge supercomputer. Even before computers were invented, our body's been one the whole time, from the days of creation. Everywhere you look in a cell, you see highly technical computerization. DNA has electrical polarity, positive and negative electrical impulses. The result is a binary system, more sophisticated and smaller than computers. So our cell has all this going on, and these notes are saying that I was able to get from multiple sites, like I said, they pretty much said the same thing when it came to this, is a cell is more complex than a laptop. But it's like, you can't even see it without a microscope. That's by design. There's no way that was by chance. Biological compiler DNA is different chemically, or excuse me, DNA is different chemically than the amino acids it gives orders to. Message RNA, it changes DNA code into a language cells can understand. So, for example, your DNA might be sending a message in Japanese. Well, this is like a translator. It translates the message to English, sends it to where it needs to go. It's like, okay, and then the cells do what they're supposed to do. That's what it's saying. And again, this is all happening within seconds throughout your entire body every single day. DNA indexing. DNA is a data bank of massive proportions, but indexing, not indexing, indexing. But indexes are also needed. Non-DNA chemicals work as indexes to locate needed information. Information is cycled around a feedback loop. So in other words, you'll have this little blob of non-DNA chemicals and so on. And it'll be like, oh, wait, I need that. And it'll grab it and bring it to where it needs to be. So, and again, all this is happening all at one time. Cell switching. Unsure if this has been figured out or not. I didn't really I couldn't find too much on it. They basically, all the stuff I found, it briefly talked about it, but it never really went in depth. Like, yeah, we don't really understand it yet, and so on. So I didn't really put any notes on it. I left it alone. If I find something else, I'll do an update. 5 chemicals in DNA and RNA. 2 bases in DNA code. The purines, which is adenine and guanine, and your pyrimidines, which is thymine, or in RNA, uracil and cytosine, sorry. No one knows where these actually came from. Scientists eventually devised complicated ways in expensive laboratories to synthesize dead compounds as 4 of these 5. Thymine is the one that was missing. And that goes into the Miller-Urey, which I talked about, I think, in a previous video already. But they've never actually formed life from non-living cells. Even with where people talk about cloning and everything, you still have to have something alive to clone from. So, in other words, they do genetic alterations while it's growing to make it a clone, but it's still already living. Like a human zygote or, human embryo, and then they just, as it grows, they just change the genetic code as it grows to make it a perfect match. But still, it's something that's already alive. It's not something from nothing. And, of course, that's contrary because I think several places are trying to do that. Enzymes in life forms catalyze the task, but how could enzymatic action occur outside of plants or animals? Answer, it can't. There's no way possible. So, this whole process for the first single-celled organism, according to evolutionism, would have to happen outside of a body. It's not going to happen. They try to, and everything just keeps dying. There's nothing there to keep it going. Oh, and excuse me. I don't know where that came from. Oh crap! Got me off my train of thought now. What was I going to say? Darn it. Oh, going back to the cloning thing real quick. So even if they took something, or if they got a living thing from completely nothing, they did it. They came out and said, "Yes, we did it from nothing." Big issue. It took somebody with intelligence to do it. Therefore, it didn't happen on its own, and that proves the creation standpoint, which ours is God, intelligent designer is needed to create life. Period. You're not going to get past that. It doesn't matter if 100 million scientists got together and they formed life from non-living material in a lab. It still took intelligent designers, the scientists, to do it. It's not going to happen. It still takes somebody with intelligence to design it to make it happen. Otherwise, you're never going to get it. Mathematical possibilities of DNA, possible number of code combinations is 4 times 10 to the 1,000th power of randomness can't produce. The amount of codes is 4 times 10 to the 1,000th power that goes on throughout your body, and possibilities of going on in your body there's no way randomness can just do that. It would be completely destroyed. Life required without life, none of raw materials, even if in right order, would be worth anything. So if it didn't come from something that was already alive, it's not going to live. Period. Too many nucleotides. There's 5,375 nucleotides in the DNA of a virus. There's 3 million in human cells. That's a lot. And there's a big difference. Some try to say we started as a virus and so on, which they, well, the problem is you don't add to the genetic code and so on, so it's not going to change. So there's a big difference there. Amino acids and protein. Proteins would have to be made instantly and in the right combination and quantity at the very beginning. So the moment the animal, whatever, came about, bam, everything had to be perfect. Otherwise it would die. And again, that's helping creation, not evolution, because everything takes forever to evolve and get everything it needs and so on. Creation, God made it perfect the day He created it. It had everything it needed. Boom. That would prove creation, not evolution. Only left-handed ones. All living creatures must have protein. All are left-handed. Sugars are right-handed with very, very few exceptions. So again, most of what they had was right-handed and so on. They couldn't get everything to work when they tried everything. So even in labs, they can't produce life. Synthesized protein, which is the Miller-Urey experience, it totally failed. They never produced life, even though they quickly put that in textbooks. It's a lie. They didn't do it. Computer calculations showed that regardless of the amount of time, evolution will never, ever, ever produce life from non-life. So they decide, you know what, we're going to put this through a computer program. They put everything. I mean, they changed stuff. They tried to change it. And the computer kept saying, never happen. Will never happen. Will never happen. Finally, they just mothballed it. Because the computer kept saying, guys, it's not going to happen. No matter what you tell me, it's not going to happen. There's just no way. There's no model you can produce that it's going to happen. So even computers are telling him, wrong, it's not going to happen, get a new theory. So, only 1 divided by 10 to the 1,000th power, that just one mutation would ever be beneficial and improve DNA, and that's never happened. So in other words, that's just a very offshoot of what the possibility is for it ever happening and creating, adding to the genetic code. It's not going to happen. Again, I took a lot of stuff out to try and cram this down into a video less than 30 minutes. Some of the stuff that I went back and looked at, I was like, you know what, that's not needed. Let's take that out and so on. So again, that's DNA and protein. And really, like I said, if you need to, don't just watch the videos and like, oh, he said it, therefore it's the truth. No, go do your own research, but do research from both sides. Look at research from creationists, look at research from evolutionists, and make your own decision. Okay, and I'm just showing you, hey, based on actual science, evolutionism doesn't work. There's no way it can work. And remember, science will always stand alone. You have science, which deals with nothing but facts, and then you have interpretation of facts, creation, evolution. Science will stand alone. Evolution is not part of science. It never will be. It is a theory and theory alone. But they're trying to push it because to a lot of people it gets rid of creation, gets rid of God. That's why they're pushing it. I'm not saying everybody, because a lot of people, they're just regurgitating what they learn in school and they don't go out and do their own stuff as a teacher. And some teachers are actually threatened if they don't teach evolution, they're fired. Which is sad but true. So be here next time. We're going to go over natural selection next time. So hopefully these videos are helping strengthen your faith in God's Word and the truth of God's Word and its infallibility and its scientific accuracy and how science actually shows what God said is true. And it would, because if God made everything like, the Bible says and Christians believe, then science would prove God's existence, not disprove it, wouldn't it? And everything I've looked at, it proves it, not disproves. It proves the Bible through and through, and we'll keep going until we're done with all the facts. So hopefully you guys are getting a lot out of these videos. I will be here next time to show you or go over natural selection. And I might try something different. I might try and put it up as a PowerPoint, just have like the camera down in the corner or something. I don't know. Or I might just keep doing it like this. It doesn't matter. But, so be here next time for natural selection. Until then, guys, God bless. Stay safe. I know a lot of people are going to be cleaning up a lot of damage and stuff after Hurricane Matthew. Hopefully everybody's all right and there was no loss of life in your areas. which I know there were several all over the place, so, and injuries and everything. But hopefully everything's done with for this hurricane season, and y'all will be all right. So until then, God bless, stay safe. I'll see you next time.